The night was calm on the edge of the small human colony. The stars burned above like tiny lamps, and the wind carried dust across the rocky plain. A group of workers were finishing their shift when the sky suddenly flashed. At first it looked like lightning, but no storm followed. Instead, a burning trail tore across the atmosphere, moving faster than anything natural. Children pointed and shouted. Some people thought it was a falling meteor. Others feared it was a piece of broken satellite. The colony leader, a man named Ryan, rushed to the control tower. He shouted for the scanners to lock on. The machine gave back a signal. It was not rock, and it was not metal from Earth. It was something different, something alive. The object crashed into the hills behind the colony with a roar. The ground shook, and dust rose like a wall of smoke. People panicked. Some ran for cover, while others stood frozen. Ryan called for calm. He ordered a small team to follow him to the crash site. With rifles in hand and lights strapped to their suits, they moved across the rough land. The closer they came, the clearer the scene grew. A ship, shaped like a crescent blade, had dug deep into the stone. Its hull was broken, glowing with blue cracks that hummed with fading energy. Ryan raised his hand, and the team spread out, cautious and tense. Then they heard it. A low growl, mixed with pain, came from inside the wreck. Everyone froze. It was not the sound of any human. Ryan took a deep breath. "We go in," he said. "Careful." Inside the ship, wires sparked, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. They found a single figure leaning against the broken frame. It was a woman, but not human. Her skin was pale silver, her hair dark and heavy, and her eyes shone faintly in the dim light. Her armor was cracked, and one of her legs shook as she tried to stand. When she saw them, she growled, showing sharp teeth. The sound was not only a warning but also full of exhaustion. She tried to move, but her balance failed. She stumbled forward, blushing with anger and frustration at her weakness. Her hand gripped the wall, yet her body refused to obey. The humans raised their rifles, unsure. The alien woman looked ready to strike, but then her legs buckled. She fell to her knees, her breath ragged. Ryan stepped forward, lowering his weapon. "She is injured," he said. "If she wanted us dead, she would have tried already." Some of his men hesitated, but they obeyed. Ryan knelt down, keeping his voice calm. "We will not harm you," he said slowly. He pointed to himself. "Ryan. Human." Then he gestured to her, waiting. The alien woman pressed her hand against her chest. Her voice was heavy with accent, but the words were clear. "Nira," she said. Her eyes met his. For a moment, the room was silent except for the crackle of fire and the hum of dying engines. Nira tried to rise again, but her wounded leg betrayed her. She let out another low growl, this time mixed with embarrassment. Her face burned with color, and she turned her gaze away, unwilling to show weakness before strangers. Ryan understood. He motioned to his people, and two of them carefully lifted her arms. Nira resisted at first, baring her teeth. Then she gave up, realizing she had no choice. Her body trembled as they carried her out of the wreck. When they stepped back into the night, the colony lights flickered in the distance. Crowds were already gathering, whispering and pointing. Fear spread quickly among them. The sight of an alien was something no one in the colony had expected to see in their lifetime. Ryan raised his voice. "She is not an enemy," he declared. "She is hurt. We will bring her to the infirmary. Anyone who tries to stop us will answer to me." The crowd fell into silence. Some lowered their heads, unwilling to challenge him. Others still watched with wide eyes, unsure whether to believe. Nira closed her eyes as they moved her across the field. Her breath slowed, but her grip on Ryan's arm was strong. She was afraid to show it, yet she clung to the one who had spoken for her. At the infirmary, the doctors worked quickly. They scanned her body and treated the deep bruises on her leg. Her armor was set aside, piece by piece, revealing a frame both strong and scarred. She had survived battles long before this crash. When the treatment ended, Nero lay on the bed, her eyes opening slowly. Ryan stood beside her. "Why did you come here?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment before answering. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Enemy," she said. "They follow. They will come." The words chilled everyone in the room. Ryan leaned closer. "Who will come?" Nira's lips curled in a tired growl. Her eyes shone with both warning and shame. "Hunters. They destroyed my world. Now they search for me." The colony fell into uneasy silence. Outside, the stars stretched across the black sky, and somewhere in that endless night, shadows were moving closer. The infirmary was filled with silence after Nira spoke. The humans stood frozen, their eyes on her as the word hunters echoed in their minds. No one wanted to believe it, yet the look in her eyes left no space for doubt. She had survived something terrible, and whatever had destroyed her home was now moving toward theirs. Ryan stayed calm. His eyes did not leave her. "Tell me," he said, his voice firm but steady. "What are these hunters? What do they want?" Nira pushed herself up slowly. Her wounded leg shook, but her pride did not let her stay down. Her silver hair fell across her face as she breathed deeply. "Hunters take everything," she said. "They search for strong blood. They destroy worlds, take people, use them as fuel for war." Her voice was heavy with anger. "They do not stop. Never." The humans exchanged nervous looks. Most had lived peaceful lives in the colony, far from Earth's past wars. None of them were ready for an enemy that moved across stars. Ryan, however, did not flinch. "How long before they arrive?" he asked. Nero lowered her head. "Not long. My ship sent signal before crash. They will follow. Maybe days." The words struck the room like a hammer. Fear began to rise, whispers spreading among the people gathered. Some wanted to leave at once. Others argued that they should hand Nira over, hoping the hunters would pass by if they gave her up. Ryan raised his hand for silence. His voice cut through the noise. "This colony was built on courage. We will not run, and we will not give anyone away." He turned his eyes to Nira. "If they are coming, then we must know how to fight them." Nira's eyes widened. She did not expect such words. On her own world, many had begged or hidden. To see humans stand so quickly, without knowledge of the hunter's power, surprised her. She studied Ryan for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "I will show you," she said. That night, the colony gathered in the central square. The air was cold, and the stars shone sharp above. Nira stood before them, leaning on a metal staff for balance. Even weakened, she carried the weight of a warrior. Her silver eyes glowed as she spoke. "Hunters come in ships like claws," she explained. She used her staff to draw shapes in the dust. "Fast. Sharp. They break defense, then send soldiers. Tall, black armor, faces hidden. They take no prisoners. They burn all who stand." The people listened with heavy hearts. Mothers held their children close. Workers clenched their fists. Soldiers, few as they were, straightened their backs. Nira's gaze moved across the crowd. "You cannot fight them as they fight you. They are stronger, faster. But they are blind to change. They never expect new ways. That is your power. Humans can think different. You can turn weak ground into strong." Her words planted a seed of fire in many hearts. The colony had been built by pioneers who turned empty land into a home. If they could do that, perhaps they could stand against the hunters. After the meeting, Ryan walked with Nira along the edge of the square. Torches burned, and the sound of worried voices filled the night. "You speak of them with hate," Ryan said softly. "They destroyed your people." Nira's steps slowed. Her hands tightened on the staff. "Yes," she whispered. "My clan fought. We bled. But they came in waves. They burned the sky of my world. I was last one sent away. Others stayed to die with honor. I should have stayed too, but," she turned her head away, her voice breaking with shame. "I was chosen to carry memory. To survive. But survival feels like failure." Ryan stopped walking. His voice was firm. "No. You did not fail. You lived, and now you warn us. That is strength, not weakness." Nero looked at him, her silver eyes shining with both anger and gratitude. No one had ever spoken to her like that since the fall of her world. For a moment, the warrior in her allowed herself to believe. The next morning, the colony began to change. Workers turned their machines from farming to building barriers. Engineers designed traps using mining tools. Children carried supplies with small but determined hands. The entire colony moved like a single body, each person with a task. Nira guided them, showing how the hunter's armor could be broken with certain angles of fire. She taught them how to confuse enemy scanners by using heat from burning metal. She pushed her weak leg harder each day, training beside the human guards, showing them moves and tactics. Though her body was not healed, her spirit grew stronger. Every growl that escaped her throat during training was matched with a blush of frustration when she stumbled. But the humans did not laugh. They respected her. Even in weakness, she fought harder than most could in perfect health. One evening, as the sun set in red across the horizon, Ryan stood with Nira at the half-built defense wall. The colony stretched behind them, filled with the sound of hammers and voices. "You have given us hope," Ryan said. "But I must ask. If the hunters come in force, can we win?" Nira's face was calm. Her eyes followed the horizon as if she could already see the shadows approaching. "No," she answered. "Not in open war. They are too many. But you can survive. You can cut them, bleed them, make them fear. Hunters do not understand fear. If you give it to them, you win more than battle. You win time." Ryan nodded slowly. He knew the path ahead would not be easy. But he also knew something else: humanity had always survived the impossible. This was no different. That night, as the colony worked under the stars, Nira sat alone for a moment outside the infirmary. She looked up at the endless sky, her hand resting on the staff. For the first time since her world burned, she did not feel alone. But far above, beyond the sight of any human eye, a dark fleet moved silently through space. Ships shaped like claws cut through the void, their engines leaving trails of fire. The hunters had found the signal. They were coming. The colony's days grew shorter, and every sunrise carried the weight of waiting. People worked harder than ever, turning their simple outpost into a fortress. Machines once used for farming now dug trenches. Heavy metal plates, cut from mining stock, were turned into shields. Families who had never seen war prepared their homes with quiet determination. At the center of it all stood Nira. Even as her leg healed slowly, she refused to rest. She trained with the guards from dawn to dusk. Her staff struck like lightning, her movements sharp, her voice commanding. The humans watched with respect. Even when she stumbled, she rose again with fire in her eyes. No one dared call her weak. Ryan stayed close to her. He was the leader, but he listened as much as he commanded. He saw how Nira's experience guided them, how her presence gave strength to the people. She had become more than a survivor, she was now their teacher, their warrior, their warning. But above them, beyond the sky, the danger was moving closer. It began one quiet evening. The colony's scanners picked up faint readings. At first, it looked like distant asteroids. Then the shapes grew sharper, moving with purpose. Dozens of signals, closing fast. The control tower called Ryan at once. He arrived with Nira at his side. The screen glowed with red dots, each one a ship. The technician's voice trembled. They will be here in less than 2 days. A heavy silence filled the room. Ryan turned to Nira. Is it them? Her silver eyes narrowed. She did not need to look twice. Yes. Hunters. The word spread quickly. Fear returned to the colony, yet this time it was different. People did not fall into panic. They tightened their belts, checked their tools, and looked to the horizon. They had chosen to stand, and now the test was near. That night, the colony square was filled again. Fires burned in iron barrels, casting long shadows across determined faces. Ryan stood on the platform, his voice strong. We cannot escape. If we run, the hunters will follow and burn us from the stars. Here, we have walls. Here, we have each other. And here, we will fight. The crowd answered with a cheer, not loud but steady. They were not fearless, but they were united. Nira stepped forward next. Her voice carried power even in its rough growl. Hunters think you weak. They see farmers, builders, children. They will expect you to break. But you will not. You will show them what they do not know. Human strength is not in muscle, but in heart. When they come, fight with everything. Fight not only for life, but for each other. Her words burned into the hearts of all who listened. Even the children felt it, their eyes bright with pride. The following day was a storm of preparation. Traps were hidden across the rocky plains, pits lined with sharp steel, explosives buried under soil, false signals sent to confuse scanners. Workers covered the colony with heat shields made of scrap, to hide human movements from orbit. Nira walked the defenses with Ryan, pointing out weak spots. At one trench she stopped, her eyes lingering on a group of young guards barely old enough to shave. Their hands shook as they held rifles. She knelt before them, placing her staff on the ground. Fear is not weakness, she said. Fear keeps you alive. But never let it chain you. Use it. When you feel fear, strike harder. The boys nodded, their eyes wide. Her words gave them a weapon greater than any rifle. As the day ended, the colony stood ready. The walls were built, the people armed, the traps set. Yet in the quiet of the night, doubt still crept into their hearts. Nira herself could not sleep. She stood alone outside the infirmary, her eyes fixed on the stars. She could almost see the hunters' ships cutting through the void. She remembered the night her world burned, the screams, the fire. Her fists clenched until her nails cut into her palms. Ryan approached quietly. You should rest, he said. Nira shook her head. Rest is for those who are safe. I am not safe. None of us are. Ryan stood beside her, looking at the same stars. You carry too much weight. This is not only your battle. It is ours too. Her eyes softened. She wanted to argue, but she could not. He was right. These humans, fragile yet unbroken, had chosen to share her fight. She was no longer the last of her kind standing alone. She had allies now. The next morning, the first shadows appeared in the sky. Small, black dots grew larger, moving with unnatural speed. The hunters had arrived. Sirens blared across the colony. People rushed to their positions. Children and the elderly were led underground into the shelters. Soldiers lined the walls. Workers armed themselves with whatever tools could serve as weapons. Nira stood at the front gate with Ryan. Her staff was in her hands, her armor repaired as much as human tools allowed. The fire in her silver eyes was unshaken. "Are you ready?" Ryan asked. She growled low, her voice steady. "I was born ready." The hunters' ship slowed above the hills. Their dark shapes blocked the sun, casting the land in shadow. Engines roared like thunder. Then beams of light split the sky as smaller vessels broke off, descending toward the colony. The ground shook. Dust filled the air. The first hunter soldiers stepped out of the ships. Tall, armored, their faces hidden behind black masks. Their weapons glowed with red fire. They moved in perfect lines, cold and silent. The humans held their breath. For a heartbeat, time froze. Then the hunters advanced. Ryan raised his hand. "Hold," he ordered. His voice cut through the fear. The hunters drew closer. 10 steps. 5 steps. Ryan's fist fell. Now. Explosions ripped across the plain as hidden mines detonated. Fire and stone erupted, throwing hunter soldiers into the air. Traps triggered one after another, tearing holes in their perfect lines. The colony's rifles blazed, bullets striking armor at weak points Nira had taught them to find. The first wave of hunters stumbled. For the first time, they hesitated. Nira's growl turned into a battle cry. She leapt forward, her staff striking like thunder, breaking through armor. Her injured leg held strong, fueled by rage and pride. The humans cheered as they fought beside her. The hunters had come expecting an easy kill. Instead, they met resistance. Instead, they met humanity. The battle for the colony had begun. The sun barely rose when the colony shook again. Dust and smoke from the first attack still lingered, but the hunters were not finished. They regrouped with precision, their black armor glinting in the weak morning light. Humans ran to their positions, but this time, they could see the scale of the enemy. Nira stood on the wall, staff in hand. Her silver eyes scanned the battlefield. Her legs still hurt, but her movements were fast and sharp. Every growl she made was a warning, every command from her lips carried authority. She had survived worse than this, and she would not let her new home fall. Ryan joined her at the top. "They are stronger than I imagined," he said, shouting over the wind. Nira shook her head. "Strength is nothing without thought. We fight smart, we survive. Humans can do this." Below, humans moved like a single body. They fired rifles, operated heavy weapons, and guided rolling barricades. Children had been hidden, families protected, yet everyone felt the pulse of fear and courage at once. The hunters advanced in formation, their weapons glowing with red energy. They had learned nothing from the first attack. They expected humans to panic, to break. But the colony had already learned the value of unity. Nira took a deep breath and shouted, "Fire when I say. Wait for their movement. Strike together." Ryan raised his hand. Everyone tensed, muscles tight, hearts pounding. The first hunter soldier stepped forward, his heavy boots crushing stone. He raised his weapon. Then Nira pointed. Now. The humans unleashed their traps. Rolling barricades knocked soldiers off balance. Explosives buried in the ground erupted, throwing smoke and debris. Rifles fired in perfect rhythm at weak points Nira had taught them. The hunters stumbled, unprepared for the humans' clever use of terrain. Their armor resisted many bullets, but human weapons aimed at joints and gaps found their mark. Nira leapt down from the wall, staff swinging. She struck a soldier, twisting him to the ground. Her body moved with skill born from years of survival, each motion precise and deliberate. Ryan fought beside her. Though his strength was human, he held his own. He led squads to cut off flanks, preventing the hunters from surrounding the colony. Every human who had feared the enemy now stood with courage, inspired by Nira's presence. The battle stretched across the plains. Dust and smoke filled the air. The sound of weapons, explosions, and growls mixed with human shouts. Hunters fell, but more kept coming. Their numbers were great, but the humans had strategy and heart. Nira spotted a group trying to flank the colony from the east. She shouted to Ryan, pointing to the weak spot. "Stop them. Move fast." Ryan nodded, and soldiers ran, carrying heavy shields and weapons. Nira followed, her silver hair flowing as she moved. Her staff struck again and again, each blow precise, each strike driving the enemy back. Her leg screamed in pain, but she ignored it. Pain was nothing when survival was everything. One hunter soldier broke free from the traps and ran straight for the command center. His weapon fired a red beam that cut through stone and metal. Nira spun on her heel and ran, her staff a blur. She blocked the beam just in time, redirecting it into the ground. Sparks flew, and the soldier stumbled. "Not today," she growled. With one swift movement, she struck him to the ground, disarming him. The humans cheered. Ryan arrived moments later. "Your tactics saved the center," he said, breathing heavily. Nira nodded, eyes scanning the battlefield. "This is only the beginning. They will not give up easily. We must be ready." The humans took a brief pause to regroup. They pulled back slightly behind barricades and walls. The hunters, though staggered, had not stopped. Their red eyes, visible through black masks, glowed with relentless intent. Nira studied them. She noticed something. They followed patterns, predictable movements. "Listen," she said to Ryan. "They repeat their attacks. They are strong, but they do not adapt. We can use this." Ryan raised his eyebrows. "How?" Nira smiled faintly, her growl softening into a determined grin. "We trap them. Lead them into traps they do not see. Hit fast, move faster. They cannot keep up with human thinking." With renewed determination, humans repositioned. They set up a new trap using the terrain itself. Large boulders were pushed to block paths, and fire pits were hidden under false soil. Hunters moved toward the colony again, unaware of the danger. When they stepped onto the field, Nira signaled. Humans struck from multiple sides, hitting the enemy simultaneously. Some hunters fell into fire pits. Others were trapped by rolling boulders. The first signs of panic appeared in their formation. For the first time, the hunters hesitated. Nira felt a surge of hope. "Push them," she shouted. "Do not stop." The humans fought with courage, every strike calculated, every move precise. Even the injured took part, carrying supplies, helping allies, or firing from behind walls. Nira's energy inspired them, showing that strength was not only physical but also mental. The hunters regrouped again, but this time the humans had learned their patterns. Using clever diversions, the colony struck them with unexpected force. One by one, the black-armored soldiers fell back, their advance broken. Finally, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, the first wave of hunters retreated to their ships. Smoke and dust covered the field. Humans were exhausted, bruised, and wounded, yet they stood victorious. Nira leaned on her staff, her breathing heavy. Her leg throbbed, but her spirit remained unbroken. She looked across the battlefield at the humans who had fought beside her. Their faces were dirty and tired, but their eyes shone with triumph. Ryan walked to her side. "We survived the first wave," he said. "Yes," Nira replied. "But they will come again. Stronger. Faster. We must prepare for what is next. Humans fight well, but this is only the beginning." As night fell, the colony celebrated quietly. Fires burned in celebration, not of joy, but of relief. Families hugged, soldiers cleaned their weapons, and Nira watched from the walls. The hunters had underestimated them. Humanity had stood, and even in weakness, They had found strength. Far above, in the dark void of space, the hunters' fleet regrouped. Their black ships glimmered with red lights. Observing the battlefield, they realized the humans were unlike any foe they had faced before. Not the soldiers. Not the machines. It was the courage, the will, the unpredictability. Somewhere in the colony, Nira smiled faintly, her silver eyes reflecting the firelight. She knew the coming battles would be harder, but she also knew this: humans could rise to any challenge. And together, they could face even the hunters. The colony had breathed a short moment of relief. The first wave of hunters had been repelled, and the humans were proud of their unexpected victory. But Nira knew better. She had seen the enemy regroup, seen the cold precision of their movements. The hunters would return, smarter and stronger, and the humans must be ready. Ryan walked through the colony, checking on barricades and traps. People moved quickly, repairing walls and gathering supplies. He stopped to speak with a group of young soldiers. "You fought well yesterday," he said. "But remember, the real test is coming." The children peered from behind walls, their eyes wide but brave. They had seen their parents fight, and they understood fear in a way they never had before. Families shared whispered plans and words of encouragement. Every person had a role, no matter how small. Nira gathered the guards at the central square. Her leg had healed enough to allow movement without aid, though she still favored it slightly. Her silver hair caught the light of the morning sun as she stepped forward. "They learned from yesterday," she said. "They will not make the same mistake again. The first attack failed because we fought smart. The second will be different. They will try to divide us. They will use tricks." Ryan frowned. "What kind of tricks?" Nira tapped her staff on the ground, the sound echoing. "Hunters do not understand humans well. They fight like machines. They expect you to react the same way every time. But we can change the rules. We will set traps they do not see, move in ways they cannot predict, and fight with courage they cannot measure." The humans nodded, absorbing every word. Even the youngest of the soldiers looked determined. They had seen Nira fight, they had felt the power of her presence. By midday, the colony had changed again. Trenches had been deepened, fire pits hidden under loose soil, and new barricades placed at unexpected angles. Engineers worked on heavy weapons, adapting mining lasers into defensive tools. Every person had a task, and everyone moved with purpose. Nira stood at the edge of a high wall, watching the horizon. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the sky. "They are coming," she said quietly. Ryan looked up. Tiny dots appeared first, growing steadily larger. The hunters had returned, and this time, they were not alone. Faster ships accompanied the main force, moving in patterns designed to surround the colony. "Form ranks," Nira ordered. "Stay calm. Watch the signals. Move as one." The humans ran to their positions. Soldiers manned the walls and barricades, while volunteers carried supplies and assisted in setting traps. Even though fear lingered in their hearts, the humans were not trembling. They had learned the value of courage, and now it would be tested again. The first hunters reached the colony outskirts. They moved faster than before, using small flying drones to locate traps. Their black armor glinted in the sun, and red energy weapons hummed with power. They were cautious, yet confident. Nira growled low, her eyes blazing. "Do not let them think they control the field. Move quickly. Hit hard. Lead them into our traps." The humans obeyed. They lured the first group of hunters toward a concealed trench filled with spikes. As the enemy advanced, ropes and pulleys triggered the trap. The ground opened slightly, sending the hunters tumbling into the hidden pit. They roared in frustration but were unharmed. The humans had planned carefully, no one died, but the enemy's advance was slowed. Nero leapt down from the wall, her staff moving like lightning. She struck at the soldiers who had escaped the trap, forcing them back. Her movements were precise, her anger controlled, each strike showing years of survival experience. Ryan coordinated the human forces. He moved groups to reinforce weak points, led squads to cover retreating allies, and adjusted traps as the battle changed. Every human followed his orders, yet they moved with creativity, adapting quickly when hunters changed their strategy. The hunters had expected fear and disorganization. They had not expected humans who could think, adapt, and fight together. The enemy hesitated, unsure how to continue. But the hunters were smart. They adapted too. Flying drones scanned the battlefield, sending back information to the ships above. Heavy beams fired from the air, forcing humans to scatter. Walls were struck, traps destroyed, and the first signs of real danger appeared. Nira did not falter. "Regroup. Move to secondary positions," she shouted. Her staff struck another hunter, knocking him back. Humans followed her lead, moving like water, flowing around obstacles, attacking from unexpected angles. Ryan raised a modified laser cannon, firing at a hovering ship. Sparks flew as the beam struck the armor. The humans cheered. Even the hunters flinched at the unexpected strength of the humans' adaptation. The battle stretched across the plains. Smoke rose from scorched earth. Dust and fire mixed in the air. Humans and hunters clashed again and again. But for every hunter advance, there was a human counterattack. Every tactic the enemy thought would succeed was met with clever resistance. Hours passed. The sun dipped low, and shadows lengthened. The hunters finally paused. They had failed to divide the colony, failed to break the human spirit, and failed to fully understand the unpredictable strength they faced. Nira stood on a mound, breathing heavily, her staff resting against her shoulder. Humans gathered around her, bruised but alive. Her eyes swept over the battlefield. "This is only one step," she said. "They will come again. Stronger. But so will we. Humans fight differently. We survive differently. That is why we will not fall." Ryan approached her. "You are right. We have learned a lot. We can use it next time." Nira nodded. Her leg ached, and her muscles burned, but she felt alive. For the first time in many cycles, she felt hope. She had found a place where humans and alien strength combined. Together, they could face anything. As night fell, the humans repaired what they could. Fires burned to keep watch, and small squads patrolled the outer edges. Nira stayed awake, walking along the walls, her eyes scanning the stars. She could almost see the hunters' ships moving silently in the void. She growled softly, a promise to the enemy. "They will not break us," she whispered to the night. "We are stronger than they think." And above them, beyond the reach of human eyes, the hunters communicated in clicks and signals. They studied the battlefield, realizing that humans were not simple prey. They were adaptable, clever, and surprisingly courageous. The enemy's strategy would have to change again. The war for the colony was far from over, but humans had survived another day. Their courage had been tested, their minds had been challenged, and their unity had proven stronger than the enemy had imagined. Nira smiled faintly, a growl of pride escaping her throat. She had found a new kind of strength, one that was not just hers, but shared with the humans who had chosen to stand with her. The next day dawned with a pale light, the sky streaked with clouds and the lingering smoke from yesterday's battle. Humans moved with quiet efficiency, repairing barricades, checking weapons, and preparing for another attack. The colony had learned quickly, but Nira knew the hunters were not done. They were clever and ruthless, and today would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. Ryan walked through the trenches, speaking with soldiers and volunteers. "Check every trap. Check every weapon. Do not leave a single weak point," he instructed. Humans nodded, repeating the orders down the lines. Children and families stayed in shelters, but they still watched, learning from the courage of their protectors. Nira stood on the wall, scanning the horizon. Her silver eyes narrowed as she noticed something unusual. A dark shadow moved quickly across the sky, separate from the main fleet. The hunters were testing something new. They are coming in smaller groups, she said, her voice low but firm. They want to find weak points. Be ready for anything. The humans tensed. Yesterday's victory had given them hope, but the unknown was always more dangerous than the known. As the day progressed, the first groups of hunter scouts approached. Unlike the earlier waves, these soldiers moved quietly, almost invisible against the rocky terrain. They used the sun and shadows to hide their movements. Nira noticed the pattern immediately. Spread out, she shouted. Do not let them see all of us at once. Use the terrain. Draw them into traps. The humans obeyed. They scattered into the hills, hiding behind rocks, walls, and barricades. Nero led a small squad to a ridge overlooking a narrow path where the hunters would have to pass. When the first hunter stepped into the trap, it was almost like a signal. Nira struck with her staff, knocking the soldier into the path of a concealed pit. Sparks flew as the hunter stumbled, trapped exactly as planned. The humans fired from hidden positions, forcing the rest of the group to retreat. Ryan coordinated the main defense, moving squads quickly to block other paths. Humans worked like a single machine, reacting with intelligence and speed. Every trap, every weapon, every move had been considered. But the hunters were learning too. They quickly regrouped, sending another team from the other side. This time, they used flying drones that hovered above the battlefield, scanning for heat signatures. Humans ducked and rolled, using smoke and mirrors to hide their positions. Nero led the defenders, using clever maneuvers to confuse the drones, throwing false signals with reflective metal and smoke from controlled fires. Hours passed. The humans and the hunters danced across the battlefield, neither gaining full advantage. The sun climbed high, then fell toward the horizon, casting long shadows. Sweat dripped from foreheads, muscles ached, and yet no one gave up. Then, without warning, the main fleet above the colony unleashed a new weapon. Beams of energy cut through the walls and barricades, forcing humans to scatter. Heavy structures collapsed, and dust filled the air. Panic began to rise. Nira growled low, her silver eyes burning with focus. Do not panic, she shouted. Move to secondary positions. Use what you have. Fight with everything. She leapt into the chaos, staff striking hunters who had broken through the first line. Her movements were sharp and calculated. Every blow, every block, every swing carried experience and skill. Humans around her were inspired, attacking with confidence, improvising when plans failed. Ryan moved alongside her, leading a squad to repair broken barricades and redirect soldiers to new positions. He shouted orders, adjusted tactics, and reminded humans to focus on teamwork. The humans were exhausted, but they adapted quickly. Their courage and creativity were unmatched by the enemy. The hunters realized their new weapon had not fully succeeded. They had expected humans to panic, but humans had adapted faster than anticipated. Every advance was met with resistance. Every trap slowed the enemy. The humans had learned the value of strategy, unity, and ingenuity. Nira saw an opportunity. A group of hunters had moved too far ahead, isolated from the rest. She signaled to a small team of humans. Hit them now, she ordered. The humans moved swiftly, using the terrain and traps to surround the isolated group. Hunters were forced into tight spaces, where humans had set explosives and barriers. With careful timing, they trapped the soldiers without losing anyone. The hunters struggled, growling and firing, but the humans had prepared for every move. Ryan fired a heavy laser cannon at a hovering drone, knocking it down. Humans cheered as it crashed into the ground. Nira struck another hunter with her staff, knocking him back into a pit filled with spikes. The humans had found a rhythm, working as one with Nira's guidance. By evening, the second wave of the hunters had been repelled. The humans were bruised and tired, but no lives had been lost. They had adapted to the enemy's new tactics, and they had survived against superior technology. Nira leaned against her staff, breathing heavily. Her silver eyes scanned the horizon. She could see the main fleet above, moving back into the void for now, regrouping. The hunters were persistent, but humans had proven that courage and intelligence could match brute force. Ryan approached her. "You were incredible today," he said. Nira shook her head slightly, a faint smile crossing her face. "No. We were incredible. Humans fought with everything they had. That is why we survived." The humans gathered around, repairing what they could and checking for hidden dangers. Fires burned in iron barrels to provide light and warmth. Families hugged, soldiers cleaned weapons, and the colony worked quietly under the night sky. Even as they celebrated, Nira kept watch. She could sense the danger had not passed. The hunters would return, stronger and more prepared. But the humans had learned something crucial: together, they were not weak. Their courage, adaptability, and unity made them unpredictable and powerful. In the quiet moments before sleep, she whispered to herself, "We can do this. We will survive. And one day, they will see that humans are not prey." Far above, in the darkness of space, the hunters' commanders observed the battlefield. They communicated in clicks and signals, frustrated by the humans' cleverness. For the first time, they had faced an enemy that refused to follow expectations, an enemy that adapted, fought, and survived. The hunters did not retreat because of fear. They retreated to plan, to strategize, to understand the humans before attacking again. But Nira knew one thing clearly: humans had shown their strength, and now the war would no longer be easy for the enemy. The colony rested that night, but sleep was light and dreams were filled with determination. Nira patrolled the walls until the stars were high, her eyes alert, her senses sharp. She was ready, as were the humans beside her. The colony was quiet at dawn, but the air carried tension. Humans moved quickly, finalizing barricades and checking weapons. Nira and Ryan walked together along the walls, scanning the horizon. The hunters' fleet was visible, dark silhouettes against the rising sun. They were larger than before, more organized, and ready for a decisive strike. "This will be their strongest attack," Nira said, her voice steady but low. "They will try to break us completely. We must be ready for anything." Ryan nodded. "We've learned a lot. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for our home. And we will show them that humans do not yield easily." The humans took positions across the colony. Soldiers manned walls and barricades, engineers prepared heavy weapons, and volunteers carried supplies for the wounded. Even those who had never fought were ready to protect their homes and families. The sense of unity was stronger than fear. Nira took a deep breath. Her silver eyes scanned the enemy fleet. "Remember," she said to the gathered humans. "They are powerful, but they are predictable. We are clever, adaptable, and brave. Strike together, move together, and never give up. Today, we fight for every life in this colony." A low hum filled the sky as the hunters' ships descended. Beams of energy lit the battlefield, and soldiers advanced from the ships. They moved faster and more coordinated than before, but the humans were ready. Traps hidden beneath soil, rolling barricades, and improvised weapons waited for them. The first group of hunters reached the colony walls. Nira growled low, charging forward. Her staff struck a hunter soldier, throwing him back into a trap. Sparks flew as his armor met sharp metal. Humans attacked from behind walls, using every angle to their advantage. Ryan moved with his squads, covering weak points, leading counterattacks, and adjusting tactics as the battle evolved. Humans moved with intelligence and heart, striking where the enemy least expected. The hunters sent flying drones overhead, but humans had prepared for them. Smoke and mirrors, reflective metal, and clever maneuvers made the drones misinterpret positions. Explosives and laser fire brought drones down one by one. Hours passed. The sun climbed high, then began to set, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The battle raged across the plains. Dust, smoke, and fire filled the air. Humans were bruised, tired, and wounded, but they continued to fight. Neera's silver eyes never left the battlefield. Every movement, every strike, and every command kept humans organized and focused. Then came the moment of decision. A group of hunters broke through the barricades and approached the colony's center, aiming for the command post. Ryan saw them and shouted orders, but there was no time for hesitation. Neera stepped forward. "I will stop them," she said firmly. Her staff struck with precision, knocking back one soldier after another. She led the humans into coordinated attacks, her presence inspiring every fighter. Even the youngest soldiers moved with determination, following her commands and striking at weak points in the enemy formation. Ryan activated a heavy laser cannon, aiming at a hovering ship. Sparks and smoke rose as the beam struck true, sending the ship crashing into the ground. Humans cheered, but there was no time to celebrate. The battle was not over. The hunters regrouped, sending another wave toward the colony walls. Neera growled, rallying the humans. "Focus. Adapt. Fight together." Humans used everything they had learned in the previous battles. Traps, barricades, clever maneuvers, and improvisation slowed the enemy. Every human knew their role. They communicated quickly, supported each other, and struck with precision. The hunters were powerful, but they had underestimated the humans' ability to adapt. For every attack they made, humans found a counterattack. For every trap the hunters destroyed, humans had another ready. The enemy had expected fear, confusion, and chaos. Instead, they found courage, strategy, and unity. As the sun set completely, the final wave approached. The hunters, frustrated and desperate, advanced with all their strength. Neera stepped forward, staff in hand, and Ryan beside her. Humans formed ranks, ready for the last stand. The battle was fierce. Beams of energy cut through walls, and explosions shook the ground. Neera moved like lightning, her staff striking with precision. Humans fought beside her, attacking from unexpected angles, using traps, barricades, and ingenuity to slow the enemy. Ryan coordinated the defenses, moving squads to cover weak points and leading counterattacks. Humans worked as one, moving quickly, thinking ahead, and never giving up. Every strike, every block, and every maneuver reflected their courage and intelligence. Finally, the tide began to turn. Hunters faltered under the humans' combined strategy. Traps, teamwork, and clever tactics forced them to retreat. They hesitated, unsure how to continue against an enemy that refused to be predictable. Neera saw the moment. "Push forward," she shouted. Humans surged with renewed energy. They struck at the enemy with precision, forcing the hunters back. One by one, the enemy soldiers fell, retreating to their ships. Ryan fired the final shots from a heavy laser cannon, sending the last ship crashing. The remaining hunters retreated to space, their fleet broken and scattered. Silence fell over the battlefield. Dust and smoke rose, but humans stood victorious. Bruised and tired, they had survived the strongest attack the hunters could muster. Neera leaned on her staff, breathing heavily, her silver eyes scanning the horizon. She looked at the humans who had fought beside her. Their faces were dirty, their bodies wounded, but their eyes shone with triumph. Ryan walked to her side. We did it, he said, his voice full of relief and pride. Nira shook her head slightly, a faint smile on her lips. No. We did it together. Humans fought with everything they had. That is why we survived. That is why we will continue to survive. The colony began to rebuild immediately. Walls were repaired, barricades restored, and wounded were treated. Fires burned in celebration, not for victory alone, but for survival, unity, and courage. Families hugged, soldiers cleaned their weapons, and volunteers carried supplies to those in need. Nira watched from the walls, her silver hair catching the light of the stars. She had seen many battles, many losses, but this place felt different. Humans were not just strong physically, they were strong in heart, mind, and spirit. Ryan joined her again. You have shown us what it means to fight with courage, he said. Nira nodded. And you have shown me what it means to survive with hope. Together, we are stronger than any enemy. Even hunters cannot break humans when we stand united. The stars above were calm and bright. Somewhere far away, the hunters' fleet regrouped, but they would think twice before attacking again. Humans had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even the most powerful foes. As night settled over the colony, humans rested with pride. Tomorrow would bring work, rebuilding, and vigilance, but for now, they celebrated survival. Nira patrolled the walls one last time that night, her eyes sharp and alert. She growled softly, a sound of satisfaction and promise. We survived, she whispered. And we will thrive. Humans are not prey. We are fighters. We are survivors. We are stronger than anyone expects. The colony slept under the stars, safe for now. The war was not over, but humanity had shown its true power. Courage, intelligence, and unity had won the day. And with leaders like Nira and Ryan guiding them, they would face any challenge in the future. For the first time in a long while, Nira felt hope not just for herself, but for the humans she had come to protect. Together, they had faced the impossible, and together, they had triumphed. Humanity had proven that it could survive, adapt, and rise above even the deadliest threat.